would cutting stamp duty be a good thing for people who want to buy a home? The answer is yes, but also no. So stamp duty, for anyone who hasn't had the misfortune of paying it, is the tax you pay when you buy a property. It is a percentage of the purchase price. So it's actually a pretty hefty sum that you have to hand over as well as the deposit. Some people think cutting stamp duty for first-time buyers is a good idea because it's very difficult for people to save deposits now. And if you have to find the cash for stamp duty on top of your deposit, it's a lot. First-time buyers already get discounts, but it's not cut completely for them. So there is an argument to be made that cutting stamp duty for first-time buyers is a good thing. The problem is, if you cut stamp duty for everyone across the board, you risk creating a bit of a housing bubble. This actually happened during the pandemic. When Rishi Sunak, now the Prime Minister, was Chancellor, he cut stamp duty because we were coming out of lockdown and he wanted to get the housing market moving because it had been completely frozen. What that did was contribute to epic house price rises, which people are really a little bit worried about right now because it looks like house prices are coming down from that pandemic peak that was in part stimulated by cutting stamp duty. Because when you cut stamp duty, people think, oh, it's not as expensive as it was to buy a house. Maybe I'll spend a bit more. Maybe I'll put in a slightly higher offer. The truth is you then kind of cancel out the saving on stamp duty, but still, that's how the psychology works. So cutting stamp duty for first-time buyers, probably a good thing. Maybe even cutting it for people who don't have loads of money who are looking to move to their second home and upsize because they're having a family. Not necessarily a bad idea. But cutting it for absolutely everyone at once without increasing housing supply, probably not a smart idea. And there is a really interesting think tank called the New Economic Foundation. They're left-leaning, and they've got this idea that you should cut stamp duty for the people I just mentioned, but not for overseas investors and not for people who own more than one home. And there is international precedent for that. Other countries have done it. Australia, Austria, Denmark, Scotland, Canada. These are all places where if you're investing in their property market, you will actually pay a higher surcharge or tax. So Britain is a bit of an outlier. Other experts also agree that stamp duty needs reform. The Institute for Fiscal Studies, who are a more centre think tank than the New Economic Foundation, have said that stamp duty actually discourages people from downsizing when they've got a house that's too big for them, and that getting rid of it would encourage them to downsize, sell up, and then those bigger homes that families need would come back in to the housing market. So this is something that there's quite a lot of consensus on now, not just on the left, but in the centre. Stamp duty is actually not a particularly effective tax. And there is an argument that some people will make that it should be replaced with a land value tax. Now, that is not politically popular, particularly not with the Conservatives, but it is something that lots of economists think is a brilliant idea. So a land value tax is actually kind of exactly what it says on the tin. It's a system of taxation which taxes people based on how much their property is worth, instead of when they buy it, how much they are paying for it, or like with council tax where you pay every month. And some economists argue that that's a more effective way of taxing people's property wealth. But, of course, it wouldn't be particularly popular with people who maybe don't have huge amounts of income, but are sitting in a house that's now worth 1.2 million, for example.